Hi everyone, welcome to my tarot and numerology analysis for the last ever T.Rex show, which took place on May 24th, 1977 in Stockholm, Sweden at the Grona Lund amusement park, and I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. But this is just for entertainment. It's for fun. Some of you may not be all that familiar with tarot or numerology, but I'm not going to go into great detail about it. You can go ahead and Google those subjects if you like. Any diehard Mark Bolan fan knows that he was familiar with the concept of numerology because he talked about it in an interview once. So I'm going to get right into it, and once again, take it if it resonates with you, fine. If it doesn't, just view it as merely entertainment only. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to begin with going over the numbers, the numerology for Mark for that particular day, May 24th, 1977. During 1977, Mark was in a 9 personal year. Now, in numerology, there are only 9 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's the basis of numerology. It sounds very simple, but it can get very complex. For personal year, he was in a year of 9. That is, as I explained before, the final number. And that is the number of completion. So he was feeling, in essence, that year, beginning January 1st, of feeling the need to clean house, so to speak. He was really looking at his life from a bird's eye view that year. Deciding what needed to go, what needed to stay. And the purpose of doing that is to prepare for new beginnings in the near future, in the following year. This is an energy that comes from the outside in, so it was in the ethers for him. He was feeling this energy, and he was deciding what served him and what didn't. And that could relate to anything. It could be a very literal meaning of actually cleaning house, actually getting rid of belongings, that he no longer needed, or relationships that didn't serve him anymore, mindsets, ways of thinking, certain routines that needed to go that weren't working anymore. And so that was sort of the theme of that year. And 9 is also a very emotional, creative number. So again, he was in his creativity that year. And it's also the humanitarian number. So he also had on his mind, how can I create a life that best serves the higher good enjoyment of everybody? So he was really focused on his art and improving his life that year. 5 personal month. He was in a 5 personal month during May of 1977. So every year has its own umbrella vibration, and every month has its own individual little vibration. And during May, he was in a 5 month, and that is right smack dab in the middle between 1 and 9. And that is all about change, freedom, adventure. It is all about the 5 senses, the 5 physical senses. And it's basically, of all the numbers, it is the one that is most open to change. If you even look at the 5, it's open from the front and the back. So it's headed towards the future, but it's open to all possibilities from all ends. And so during the month of any sort of 5 personal month, you can expect the unexpected. Things are not going to go at a slow pace or at a routine sort of pace. So if you're thinking during a 5 personal month of staying home, following your usual routine, nothing at all changing. You're in for a surprise during that kind of month or that kind of year. So he was definitely, it was a fast paced month. There was a lot going on. And of course, during a 5 month, you also have to look out for overindulgence, because it's all about the five senses. So you have to look out for spending too much money, eating too much, drinking too much, and that kind of thing. During May 24th, that particular day, when he woke up that morning, he was having a two personal day. And two personal days, twos are all about, they're a very feminine energy, the number two. It is all about sensitivity, cooperation, love. People with a two energy in any sort of way, they want to get along with everybody. They want to work as a team. They don't, this energy generally doesn't want to stand out too much. Now, I don't think that was Mark necessarily, but this energy was being impressed on him this particular day. He was really in his feelings that day. He was feeling sort of maybe a little more docile than usual. It definitely wasn't a charge ahead, driven, ambitious sort of day. On the contrary, it was kind of a mellow, sensitive vibe that day, beginning that morning and going throughout the day. He was really interested in focusing on harmony and focusing on tending to the details, cooperation, teamwork, and that's what that day was about for him. So we'll get into the tarot part of it now. Okay, now as far as the tarot is concerned, what motivated me to do this reading or inspired me to do it was a couple of weeks ago was May 24th. Today is, what is it, June 10th, I think? And so the 43rd anniversary of the final T.Rex show was 43 years ago, May 24th. And so that's kind of been on my mind lately, seeing the pictures, of the last show and his performing that day. And for some reason, I was just wondering, what was on his mind and heart that day? Because we all know now that that would be the last show he would unfortunately ever do. Of course, he wasn't aware of that yet, but it just struck my curiosity. And so I wanted to explore that with tarot. And it was just something that came to mind. I thought it would be interesting to explore. Now, the first question I asked was, the universe was, what mood did he wake up in that morning? When he woke up that morning, or when he began his day, before he opened the door to his hotel, before he went out and dealt with anybody, got down to any business at all, what were his first waking moments like, mood wise? What mood was he in that morning? And this is the card that I pulled for it, the Queen of Cups. Now, immediately when I look at it, I think that that morning he was very in tune with his higher self. And the Queen of Cups, she is led by the heart. She sees the beauty in all things and all people. The good side of life, the darker side of life. She understands that there's a beauty in all of it and a higher purpose to even some of the things that on the outset aren't so beautiful. She's very wise. She's like a mother figure. You can always go to her, and she always shows compassion. She always shows patience. And I think that he was in his spirit self that morning. He was not in his ego at all. He was, if you notice, this person is holding a cup. Now, it's supposed to represent a cup of love, generally, But I think in the context of what I'm asking here, how he began his day, like immediately I think of somebody like just sitting with their cup of coffee, looking out the window, or just like staring off into space, thinking about life, thinking about things. And I think that maybe that's what he was doing that morning. And, whether he was literally looking out his hotel room at the view, or whether he was just, sitting in a chair contemplating. I think that he was really in his feelings that morning. He was really in a very spiritual place that morning. I think he was feeling loving, spiritual, optimistic. And water in any tarot picture, in any tarot card, always represents the emotions. The Suit of Cups itself is all about emotions. And I don't know what he was doing that morning. Maybe he woke up from a night of a really restorative sleep. Maybe he'd had a really restful sleep. With good dreams. And it is known that a lot of people believe that when you sleep, that's when you astral travel. That's when you visit the other side. Heaven. And you reconnect with your true spirit self, who you really are, what you're really here to do. Your soul knows exactly what you're here to do, but when you wake up in the morning, you don't remember that. So you're just sort of, going through life doing the best you can. I feel like, when I look at this picture, I'm wondering if maybe he reconnected with the spirit during the night while he was sleeping, or maybe he meditated that morning. Maybe he spent that morning, in quiet meditation or contemplation, and managed to get himself, into this really, serene state of clarity, where he could feel the love. He could feel the love for himself, he could feel the love for everyone around him, and he realized that it was all good. All was actually well, even amongst whatever problems he had, or petty annoyances in life. He understood during a few moments that morning, however long it lasted, that all was okay and everything was working out for the highest good. Now, I think that if you look at, you can't really see in the picture here, but in the trim of the Queen's robe, there is some imagery, and you can't even see it from here, but there is an image of a little baby. There's an image of a baby swimming in the waves. And I think that he was thinking about his son that morning, for sure. His son Roland, who at the time was just a baby. And, inevitably, thinking about your kid is going to bring up, the love and the emotion and all the feels. And so I think that that was what was on his mind, in particular. And he wasn't really focused so much on the day ahead just yet. If you notice, the queen, is in her throne, and she sort of has her back turned to the day, the day ahead. She's not looking forward to the right. Um, she's sort of in her shell, sort of, so to speak, and able to sort of block out the world for a little while, and sort of get in her place of spirituality and truth. At the very bottom of the picture on the lower left, you can see a starfish, and in the sand right there, right by the Queen's feet. And right away, to me, that represents Mark Bolan, the star. And, in this particular image, the star isn't really the main feature, is it? I think this was, before the day began, before he sort of put on his Mark persona and walked out the door. Of course, that was on his mind and heart, but in the context, in this particular instance, Mark Bolan, the star, was very small, was laying at the queen's feet right there, not really the main star of the show at the moment, rather um, Mark's higher self was the main focus that morning. Okay, and I did hesitate to bring up this point, but I thought, why not? If you look at the scene, this whole beach scene, and the direction that the queen is facing, she almost seems to be facing, looking out towards the west, towards, I suppose that would be, he was in Stockholm, so I suppose that would be the Atlantic Ocean in America. And as we all know, Roland, his little son, ended up being raised out in California after his passing, being raised in Los Angeles. And I think that, everything in tarot is symbolic. It's not necessarily literal, but I think that this sort of represents, it's sort of giving the clue that I think he was feeling everything was going to be all right. And if his son was on his mind that morning, I think that that was included in those feelings, the feeling that his son, long term in the distant future would be okay. Because I'm sure as a parent that was, a daily concern for him. So am I saying that he had any sort of psychic dreams about, where his son would end up? No, of course not. But I think that he just had the general feeling that in the long term distant future, he would be okay. And I think that the symbolism of the queen looking out towards the west, in this beach scene, and us knowing that that's where the environment that Roland was raised in, I think that that is representative of that. And I thought that was a really key part of the Queen of Cups picture. Okay, and the next question that I ended up asking the universe was, what was Mark's mood when he took the stage that day? As he was taking the stage, how was he feeling? And this is the card that I pulled. This is the Tower. Not the prettiest picture in the world, and quite a departure from what we started with the Queen of Cups. The main it's much scarier than what it looks, but the main gist of it is destruction of the old and the birth of the new. It's about something coming down or crumbling, that, and it's something that needs to happen because whatever it is was not built on a solid foundation to begin with. So it's something that needs to come down, it needs to end, so that something better and more solid can be built in its place. Now, in the context of a mood, what was he feeling when he went on stage? I think he was feeling insecure, unstable, like things were falling, things, and there wasn't anything he could do about it. He just didn't feel like he was on solid ground in some way. And in numerology, the 16 is actually a karmic number, which means the rise and fall of the ego. So, immediately when I see that, I think maybe he felt like this kind of show, as you know, it was an amusement park. It wasn't exactly Wembley. He was sort of in the process of rebuilding his career, trying to make a comeback. Perhaps he felt that, this was sort of a downturn, and he didn't really, he was no longer in the Queen of Cups mode of seeing the long-term benefit of anything. Maybe he was just in a place of, you know, this is what it's come to, possibly, or it could have been something as simple as, maybe the equipment wasn't right, was acting up. Maybe he felt unprepared for the show itself. You know, maybe he didn't feel he rehearsed enough or something like that. Maybe the crowd wasn't very excited or, you know, wasn't right in some way. This is something that I definitely felt like I needed clarifiers on. I felt like I needed to pull some more cards to get some more insight on it. So I ended up pulling the next two cards.